Yes, welcome in. Badgers off to a 3-0 start here in the 2024-2025 season. Competition picks up a little bit, Jesse, here moving forward as Wisconsin welcomes in number 9 Arizona coming up on Friday.
Yeah, I know they've sort of built the schedule to get better and better, and this is one heck of a test early in the season. Arizona's averaging about 98 points a game. I know the competition maybe has not been great for the Wildcats early, but it's going to be a special night with a lot of familiar faces in the building.
It definitely is. We're going to get into all of it. Going to be joined by one of those familiar faces, Josh Gosser, a two-time Final Four participant. And they are going to be honoring both of those teams on Friday night. Also going to be honoring Bo Ryan, putting his name up in the rafters at the Kohl Center. And so looking forward to that. They're having a stripe out. So if you're going to the game, you can go up on UW's Twitter account, or I assume every social media, and find what section you're in and what color you should be wearing, red or white. So check that out as well. We're going to get into that with Josh. Also going to talk about what the Badgers have done so far here in their first 3 games. Slow starts, but certainly hot finishes for them to get to 3-0. Talk all about it. Before we do, as always, Home Field Apparel, the official apparel sponsor of the camp, of the swing. I knew I was going to do that. Tough scene for me. But either way, Home Field, whether the swing or the camp, best vintage gear you can possibly find in the college game. They have so much new Wisconsin stuff, and as we get closer to the holidays, I'm sure they're going to be releasing even more. So go check them out, homefieldapparel.com, and use the promo code Bucky24 for 15% off your first purchase. So, all right, let's jump into this because we're also going to talk about a story that is coming out a little bit later this week. I guess tomorrow. You're writing it for Thursday. And can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay,
that's the
hope.
hope.
I'm say that. A story where you got to be embedded with the Badgers as they prepared for their game against Appalachian State on Sunday. So you spent the day with them last Friday?
I actually got a couple days. I got Thursday and a film review session on Friday morning, which was really cool.
So it wasn't Appalachian State. Excuse me. It was Montana State.
Yeah, it was pregame preparations for Montana State and then film review off the Montana State game ahead of Appalachian State.
Okay. We'll get to that, but would like to start with just your initial impressions here of this 3-0 start. I think there's obviously a lot of unknown. When they were down 21-5 against Holy Cross in the opener, there were, Fire Guard was trending, and so that did not go well. Then they outscored them 80-40 the rest of the game. So the rest of the game went well. Fell behind. Didn't start out great against Montana State. Didn't start out great against Appalachian State. Fell behind both those games, but finished strong. Beat Montana State in a game that was the score. I don't know indicated how close how much they had dominated maybe that second half. And then obviously the Appalachian State game went down 17-8, then went on a 24-0 run, and it was over. So they have that ability, but I think we have to start with the guy that maybe has been the most impressive to this point, and a guy that, has been in college for quite some time, but you just weren't exactly sure what you're going to get from him coming off an injury. He'd been at, we're going to call it 3 different schools because he did go to, was it New Mexico or New Mexico State that he committed to and was there for a little bit?
I'm not counting that. I think he committed for 2 seconds and then picked Wisconsin, but definitely 2 schools that he was at.
Colorado State and then Missouri. And if I recall correctly, the Missouri coach said, before he got hurt, that he was the best player on the floor at times for them. John Tonji, Wisconsin's leading scorer through 3 games, and has done it in a variety of ways, and has kind of been, I guess, the plug for what they lost in AJ Storr. Completely different players, but in terms of scoring, he's carried the load.
It's hard not to like Tanji's game, and it was pretty clear this preseason that he had the potential to be this guy. An absolute home run transfer portal addition for Wisconsin. If you're going to go to the portal, especially for somebody who's got a year left, you need that instant impact, and that's what he's done. Obviously, he's starting, and he can do it like you're talking about. He's a 3-level scorer. He can make threes. Early in the Appalachian State game, he hit a shot, and I was like, oh, man, you make that, it's going to be a good day for you, where he was in the left corner and managed to go from the baseline to step back and bury a three, but he can get to the rim, and he's got good physicality. And once you get to the rim, you're getting to the free throw line. He's missed one free throw. I mean, he's a big reason why this team is making 92.5% of its free throw shots right now. I think the team overall is 49 for 53. So he's been everything they could have asked when they went to the portal to get specifically someone to fill AJ Storr's role. And he's just really managed to blend in seamlessly. Greg Gard has talked often about this idea of getting old, staying old, and that's harder than ever, maybe. When you have so many players leave, but it also opens the door for you to go and get somebody who has proven themselves. And I know John felt coming into this season like he could be the best version of himself, really taking what he did, not at Missouri because he was hurt, but 2 years ago at Colorado State. He had a really good season, but taking those skills and translating them to Wisconsin into being an even better player. And he is, because he's averaging more than 17 points per game.
I mean, yeah, he's Wisconsin's leading scorer. Max Klesman is number 2, but the free throw thing is perhaps like maybe the best thing. And I know AJ Storr was a solid free throw shooter for sure, but to be 16 for 17, I think it is, you said?
Well, I think he was through the first couple games.
Nope. Yeah, it's still 16 for 17.
Okay.
At least that's according to the official statistics that I'm looking at. But the team as a whole has been insane. The 16 for 16 that they went against Holy Cross was the second best, I think tied for the second best mark in school history without a miss, the most makes without a miss. So they're shooting 92%, 92.5% from the free throw line. Do we overreact or no? They're going to shoot 92% for the entire season.
This is the most definitive answer I could ever give. Overreaction, maybe it dips to 89.
Yeah, but they've been so good at getting to the line, despite shooting quite a few threes. This has been, I think, another thing that we talked about leading into this year after we saw the exhibition game, or I shouldn't even say after we saw the exhibition game, but after we got to talk to Greg and asked him about the threes, and they've put them up. They put up near, I think he said, what did he tell us? Like 27 to 32 or something like that a game?
Like 25 to 30. They're right in that pocket.
Yeah. And that's exactly right where they are. And they're shooting it better than they did last season. I mean, they were mid 30s. They're at 37 right now. And in large part because Max Klesman got hot against Montana State and went off. But this is they're going to keep shooting them, even though maybe they aren't always going to go in at the beginning of the game. And I think they've played these first few games as if they're getting ready for better opponents, as opposed to just dumping the ball in and being like, it's fine. We're gonna score easy inside. They're trying to perhaps plan for when some of these bigger games are coming.
So this is part of the story that I'm writing, but if you look at the numbers, and it is early, but this is very clearly the plan. They're making on average 10 threes a game. They're taking on average 27 threes a game. That is the highest number per game that Wisconsin has had since the three-point line came into the college game in 1986-87, at least according to my numbers. I went back and looked. And I don't think that the number of threes they're taking is going to change significantly throughout the course of this season. Maybe it dips by a few. But what's so fascinating about what Wisconsin is doing offensively this season is they want to be extremely intentional about where they're getting their shots from. And I know you could say that about a lot of teams in a lot of seasons, but it's of particular note for what Wisconsin's doing right now. They want open three-pointers. They want shots at the rim. They want free throws. They have made it a point to say, we do not want to take mid-range shots if we can help it. That's the kind of the 12 to 18-foot window, because analytically it's shown it's not a high percentage shot for them. And if you watch, that's what has transpired. Greg made a point to tell the team after the Montana State game, when they had 79 points, that 75 of the 79 points based on their shot charts and analytics came from threes, shots at the rim, and free throws. So I think that's really fascinating, the way they're structuring their offense. They want to have more spacing. The college game has changed in the last 10 years or so, where you need scoring and you need shooting. But I would expect this trend where Wisconsin is taking these threes at a higher volume to continue.
Can they be successful doing that?
Well, obviously that's the challenge, because how many times do you see, especially when you get into the postseason, you are cold for a half or 15 minutes and you lose the game. But I do think, look, if you want to evaluate on a points per possession basis, which has been a staple in Wisconsin's program since Bo was here, I mean, let's say you make 1 out of 3 on 3 possessions or whatever. That's a point per possession. I mean, that's kind of at minimum where you want to be at. So, yes, I think they can. 10 for 27, like you said, 37%. I think if you can do that consistently, you're in a pretty good position. But we have certainly seen over the years, there are times where they're hot early and then they kind of fizzle late as you start to play into your 30th or 36th game during the season. I think what they've done is tailor their roster to, and they've done this in other seasons, have guys where everybody on the floor can shoot. Even your 4-man, for example, a year ago, you weren't expecting Tyler Wall to shoot 3-pointers, but then they go and get a guy like Xavier Amos. And though it has kind of been a bit of a slower start, he did make 3 against Appalachian State. He can stretch the floor. So everybody is capable of doing it. And the hope is that you just don't have those really long cold spells, which we saw 2 years ago and led to a significant change in how they structure their offense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how it plays out numbers-wise as we go throughout the entire season. I think another big aspect of this year so far has been the starting lineup, but what they've been getting off the bench, right? Because they don't have a true point guard. I put that in air quotes for people not watching on YouTube. I put that in and say, because John Blackwell, Max Klesmit, John Tanji, that's the starting backcourt. I mean, obviously Tanji's a wing, but that's a starting backcourt. But very quickly, and as we've seen, they've been off to slow starts. But as soon as Kamari McGee comes on the floor, it just feels like he gives them just a little bit of extra juice. And that is what Greg Gard said he likes him coming off the bench for. And because that's what he told us when we talked to him. But like he has been a plug and play like Energizer bunny for them to this point. And I think you could probably say that the same about Carter Gilmore to an extent as well. But it is not so much offensively. It's defensively where all of a sudden he comes in the game, they start getting turnovers, they start, getting up in people's grill, and it's just a different feel when he's on the floor. And he is a smaller player, right? He is, and so he's not going to be able to, it's not always going to go perfect, but it just feels like he has his game so much that you kind of have to play him.
His plus minus early this season has been off the charts when he comes in. You talk about that spark that he's giving them. And really, this was one of the big questions coming into the season is what are you going to do? Because your best players very clearly are the 5 guys that are starting, but you don't have a true point guard. But I think John Blackwell has handled that role very well. Look, you just need someone to bring the ball up the floor, get the team into the offense. And then once you're running it, all 5 guys can occupy various spots on the floor. You can spread people out. But Kamari McGee, ultimately what they're doing is, he's coming off the bench. He's playing starter level minutes, and they need that because it's not like they're going to be playing 9 or 10 guys this season. And I think I've also been a little pleasantly surprised with the scoring that he's provided, because even watching some of the preseason practices, like they did this inter-squad scrimmage, and he was having a significant impact on the game, but didn't score at all, barely looked to shoot. And he's been able to make some 3-pointers. He gives them a lift. I mean, he had that great a couple games ago, the Montana State game, where he split a couple guys and made a reverse layup. He just really ignites them in a variety of ways. And I think he's come so far since he got here, because I remember watching him early on when he got here. And I know it's a transition to come to a place like Wisconsin to play in the Big Ten night in and night out. But there were times where it almost felt like it was a bit of a liability, or you were just wondering, is he going to turn the ball over? Is there going to be something that happens here where he's going to end up going to the bench? He just is playing with so much more confidence, and certainly because of that experience, but he's giving him scoring. He's playing really good defense. And I mean, I look at it like he's one of the best 6th men in the Big Ten because he's playing starter level minutes and giving him a huge lift.
Yeah. What do you think about the lift they've gotten from Gilmore as well? I mean, he's playing what? It's only 12.5 minutes per game. It feels like he has had more of an impact. And I know Greg Gard did his favorite thing that he loves to do after, which game was it? It might have been the Montana State game. If you know what you're watching, you know what you know what Carter Gilmore brings. And he's taken a lot of shit that he doesn't deserve. That these are Greg Gard's words, not mine. But if you know what you're seeing, you can see how important he is. You are one of these people that knows what you're seeing. Is he? What is he bringing?
Well, not everybody is going to average double figures in scoring like they have all 5 starters doing at this point, which really shows you about the ball distribution and the way that they're playing. But he gives you not fill up a stat sheet, but it's the intangible things where you know what your role is. And look, people can get frustrated with it, though I think he's been very good early this season. If somebody was better, that somebody would be playing. It gives you the rebounding. He gives you the screens and the small things, understands how to fit into the system, doesn't have to play 28 minutes a game, but can come in and give them a lift in the front court that they need. And I think he's gotten better and better. He's like, talk about Kamari being very confident. So is Carter Gilmore, and what his role is, can give you some occasional scoring, but just helps to spell the starters in the front court and comes in, and it's not a drop off where you're wondering, we got to get him out because we need to put a starter back in. So look, maybe it's 4 points and 2 rebounds, but that stuff is extremely impactful. And again, it goes back to, can you impact winning? And he seems to be doing that early.
He does. All right, let's go back to that starting lineup. We thought certain things. We thought John Tonji was going to be an important piece offensively. We thought John Blackwell might be able to take that second year jump that Johnny Davis did. And I think he's played well. I think he's got more to give them for sure. But when I look at what Max Klesmit did last Thursday, and then he followed it up with a solid game again on Sunday, his shooting is going to just be so. He's a streaky shooter, there's no doubt. But for this team, he needs to keep taking those shots. And again, as we talked about with the 3-pointers, they're going to. But he's a guy that's just going to keep shooting and shooting. It doesn't feel like he has a. He's not an irrational confidence guy, but he also is not lacking for confidence. And that's basketball in general, right?
There's an occasional heat check moment that I'm sure they would prefer he didn't take. But if he's in rhythm and he's getting decent looks, that's a guy you want with the ball in his hands who can make shots. Like, go back to the Marquette game a year ago where he was absolutely on fire for a half. He can do that. And obviously the 6 3-pointers that he had earlier this season in one game, I just think it took a little bit early this season just because he was battling with an injury, and you have to get in a rhythm and you have to be in shape and all of those things. But I don't expect 6 threes every game, but yeah, you get a few. And he is an alpha dog. I know that Greg has described him as such, one of those guys, maybe the guy. If you're sitting around the team, he's the one who's talking, who's giving instructions, and people listen to him because he's had success. So you command that level of respect. But yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that if you're going to look at the end of the season and say who made and took the most threes, probably going to be Max, or he's going to be right up there.
Yeah, definitely will be. Stephen Crowell got off to a bit of a slow start. First couple of games, had a nice game against Appalachian State. We're going to jump into all this. We're going to be talking to Josh Gosser here in just a minute, but I want to get behind the scenes with this a little bit. But from what we've seen from Stephen Crowell so far, they need the aggressive Stephen Crowell, correct?
Yeah, we've been saying that every year. Greg's been saying that every year. It's in him, but you've got to do it consistently. I think, though, there's obviously a lot of confidence in him, and he's just so smooth when he has the ball in the paint. He doesn't get rattled. And so, yeah, he's got to be all Big Ten level Steve.
And his fellow big up front,
Nolan Winter, to me, what a huge jump he's made from year 1 to year 2, especially early in the season when he had the 15-point game. You see more strength. That's absolutely what they needed. And that was another big question, is what are you going to do with the 4, or who's going to be the backup 5? And Nolan's given him a huge lift.
When we jump back, we're going to talk to Josh here in a minute, but when we come back, I wanted to, when it's just you and me, talk about the behind-the-scenes look that you got with the team, because I think we haven't touched on it yet very much, but defensively is where I think the team probably needs to make its biggest strides. And I'm wondering if maybe they saw a little bit of that at times. Did they?
Defensively?
Have they seen some strides, or was Greg still pretty upset when he was with the defense after the Montana State game, the film session as he got ready for Appalachian State?
Not overly upset. A lot of the story actually ends up focusing offensively, but obviously defensively, they need to be one of the top teams in the league to give themselves a chance. But I would say that the days of the 50 to 48 games that we grew accustomed to seeing are a thing of the past. So they're going to win with offense, but they're still going to have to be exceptional on defense.
All right. Let's jump into our conversation with Josh Gosser. And we do welcome in former Wisconsin great Josh Gosser. Josh, appreciate you jumping in. It has somehow been 10 years since your final year of college. How does that sit with you?
10 years since my final year, even crazier, like 14, 15 years since my first year. So it's, damn near half my life I've been spent after starting college. So it's crazy. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun journey after college. Obviously, it's the hardest part about the stage of life now is not getting to see like your college teammates and friends and stuff that often. So coming into this weekend, we're celebrating 10-year reunion. It's obviously celebrating the success is fun, but I'm just really excited to see the guys because it's been a while, especially all together. So it's gonna be a good time.
What's the plan, Josh, this weekend? I mean, you don't have to share all the details, but
yeah. Well, they got stuff planned for us. They got a VIP reception, I think, before the game. They got, getting honored on the court and stuff and football game and all that. But I'll find my way to the nitty gritty before the game. I'll find my way to a few bars with the guys and stuff. So it'll be good. We got a hotel room and stuff, so don't have to worry about kids and family and stuff. So it's going to be a weekend of just doing what we want, doing what we used to do. Probably won't be out till 2 a.m. like we used to, but we'll see.
Got to relive those days sometimes.
Got to try to keep up.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously you guys went to the Final Four back-to-back years, 13-14 and 14-15. Pretty much everybody was back for that 2014-15 team except for Ben Brust and a few other guys. I don't want to limit the impact of an Evan Anderson and his dancing. So, but this is an opportunity to celebrate the two best years, I think you could probably say, in Wisconsin basketball history. When you think back on that time and maybe before the 13-14 season, what were you guys expecting? What were the expectations going into that first year?
A lot of unknowns at that time. I mean, we think we talked about it in the past, but none of the guys we didn't really have an identity at that point. We lost 3 starters. Lost 5 seniors. Like, we didn't really have many guys returning. We had a lot of guys returning, but not a lot of guys returning who played major minutes or were starting or huge contributors. I think I missed that whole 2013 season, and I came back that next year, and I still had led us in minutes, played, and maybe points or something like that. So that just shows, like, Frank Kaminsky wasn't Frank Kaminsky yet. Sam Decker wasn't Sam Decker yet. Ben was a senior. He had played, in a full year starting under his belt. Trayvon Jackson hadn't, had a full season of starting yet. Dewey Dukin hadn't played really at all yet. Nigel and Bronson were freshmen. I was coming off an injury. So it was just a lot of a lot of things had to go right. A lot of things had to gel together. A lot of players had to step up and prove they could play at that level. And then we had to play at that level together. And it happened pretty fast. We had a lot of success obviously early, I think going 16-0. But then, the middle part of the season, I think we went into February or March unranked. So it wasn't like that team was perfect. We certainly had a lot of flaws. We had a lot to learn, a lot to grow, and we were a little more up and down. But we had the ability. We had more spurt ability. We had more scoring ability. We could play in different ways as opposed to years past, which really helped us obviously in the tournament run and have a successful season. And I think that just springboarded obviously in the next year too.
Josh, going into that 2014-15 season, you guys obviously returned everybody other than Ben and obviously a few other guys. But did you feel coming into that season like you were the best team in the country? Was it something that was ever discussed, knowing what you had accomplished the year before? Frank had kind of become Frank. Same with Sam. And what was the thought process?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily talked about, but we certainly came into that season, I think, expecting to be back in the Final Four and doing those good things. It's funny, people around town always just, you guys will be back. You guys will be back in the Final Four. No problem. It's it's not that easy. We believe that's going to happen, but it doesn't just magically happen. We know that it had to be a lot of work done. A lot of things had to go right. And but I think pretty quickly into that summer and into that off season, I think we realized like, oh shit, we are really good. Like everybody seemed to take another leap up. Sam Decker grew 2 inches, gained 20 pounds of muscle, went to Kevin Durant's camp, like came back a lot more confident. Frank continued to get his body in a better position. Nigel Hayes, I think, was the biggest difference because, Nigel and Bronson were the two guys kind of coming off the bench. And we only had to replace one starter. And we're like, oh, is it going to be Bronson, 3-guard lineup again, similar to the previous year, or is it going to be Nigel? And Nigel very quickly was like, oh, wow, like this kid is really good because he was basically backing up Frank for a few minutes his freshman year playing center, which is kind of out of his position. And he very clearly wanted to make a statement that, like, I'm not a center. I'm a forward. I have more skills than what I was able to show my freshman year. So, yeah, we replaced Ben with a 6'8", 220-pound versatile guy who could play inside, outside. And it's like, wow, now we are big, athletic, experienced. We got a lot of different options, and we still got Bronson and Douye off the bench. So it became pretty clear, like, yeah, this team is going to be really, really good. But then you look around the country, and it's like, damn, Kentucky's also really good, and Duke's also really so it was like a really strong year at the top of college basketball, so we knew it was going to be a fight. But, we went into every game, like, not only are we going to win, but we're going to like, kind of dominate you, and we're not going to play the last 4 minutes of the game. So it's just a different mindset, and I think it was deserved.
So that off season, the shirts that came to be the hashtag for the team, Make 'em Believe, I know where it came from, but can you explain to people that maybe don't remember where that came from, why it was the motto for this team?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of even making the first Final Four. I don't think a lot of people believe that we truly belong there and that we were actually good enough to win it all. And even coming into the next year, it's like, oh, Wisconsin, they were turning everyone back. They'll be preseason, top 5 in the country maybe, but I don't think anyone actually believed it. And then quite honestly, it was kind of an inside joke between all of us. Like, when we're playing video games or we're out and about doing whatever, it's like, hey, make them believe. Like, if it's trying to pick up a girl, try to play a video game or something, it's just like kind of an inside joke that we used to always do it. It kind of was the essence of the team in terms of like, serious. Like, this is a serious thing. Like, we need, we want to make everyone believe that we are good, but also had a little bit of joke behind it, a little bit of fun behind it too. And I think that was just who we are as a group. And, I think a lot of people saw one side of it and we got to see both sides of it in terms of the joking side of it. So we got to have fun with it too. But, and then when we truly got to make people believe, kind of that we are not just, old Wisconsin, like we are blue bloody type in terms of what we are this year. And for the most part, we proved it, I think.
One of the best things about being around that team were the personalities and how much fun you guys had, how enjoyable it was. Probably because you knew you were going to kick most teams' ass. But do you think you guys loosened up Bo Ryan a little bit because of the way you all interacted and then played on the court?
Oh, I know it for a fact. Seeing him 2010, 2011, seeing him all the way through that 14-15 team, yeah, it was absolutely a difference. And yeah, I don't know if it was, to your point, like, because we were winning, because we were so good, did that make us looser, or we were really loose and had fun and that made us win? It's probably a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, I think Coach just really trusted. Our leadership. I think Coach trusted our guys in the room, and I don't know. It was an interesting team because there's a very clear 7, 8, and a very clear next 7, 8. So it wasn't like, everybody knew their role going into the season, I think, which made it a little easier at practice, it was much more about, keeping guys healthy, keeping guys, in peak shape at practice and things like that. It wasn't as maybe intense all the time because I think he trusted that we understood the system. We knew how to play it well together. And he trusted that we could flip the switch. He knew what Frank's personality was. He knew what Nigel's personality was, Sam, all the guys. And I think Coach very quickly realized, like, if we want to make the best out of these guys, like, I have to let them, be a little goofy and do things a little out of the norm than I used to. And credit to Coach, because he probably did the least amount of coaching in his career that I had seen in terms of, like, actually being honest and talking and doing all this. But it was probably his best coaching job just because he did trust our leadership and trust us that we could flip the switch pretty quickly and get it done.
There were so many memorable games in that 2-year stretch. Obviously, the Kentucky one is the one that gets the most attention. The second one, not the first one.
Yep.
Sorry.
Too soon.
Yeah, I know. It's always going to be too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
For you, is there a game that sticks out outside of Kentucky? Is there a game or a moment that sticks out on the court? I'm sure there's a ton of moments off the court that probably are just as meaningful for you. But on the court, is there a moment or a game that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, that one's obvious. That's a no-brainer. Even the Arizona game before that, though, I think was like, Arizona was really freaking good. I think they were like 36-3, ran through the Pac-12, had the second best defense in the country, and to put like 80 some on them. I think we only missed 4 shots in the second half in a high pressure game. Neutral site, like that's hard to do. But to me, it was the Michigan State game in the Big Ten championship, just because Izzo and March is a bitch to play against. I mean, they were really good. They made the Final Four that year. And to be down 12 with 7-8 minutes left, like it's one thing to be good, it's one thing to have this or that, but we still had the Wisconsin like toughness and resiliency. And even though we maybe didn't look like it is because we weren't playing grinded out games as much, maybe, but we still had what made Wisconsin special. I think that game kind of showed that doesn't matter if we're down 12 with a couple minutes left. Like, we had just this will to win and determination and toughness and leadership that made Wisconsin special. So that game's a fun one to me just because we won it. I mean, I don't think they scored a point in overtime. Like, it's pretty crazy that we've outscored them like 12-0 or something in overtime in that type of game. And to get the chance to cut down nets, none of us had won a Big Ten tournament championships at that point. So that kind of stands out just as much as Kentucky, to be honest.
I was just going to add, you didn't get to celebrate that very long, though, right? Like, it's always the case at the Big Ten tournament. If you play in the championship game and you win it, the people that cover the team are barely writing about the game at all because 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, you have your next assignment, and that's like the focus. But that was a special game. It was an amazing game. If you go back, like I've had, especially when COVID hit, having to go back a chance and watch all those games, and that was one of the best games in that 2-year stretch. It may have been the best outside of perhaps the first Arizona game, just in terms of like back and forth and you guys having to claw and dig deep to get there. But that was an amazing game.
Yeah. Well, Michigan State played well. It wasn't like we just got the win. It was like Michigan State played really well. We played really well. There was shot making happening in both sides, clutch, like different up and down. It was a big time game, no doubt. But yeah, to your point, pretty quickly had to go right and to see where we are on the bracket and flip the page. And very similar to, the Kentucky win too. I mean, you kind of had to flip the page really quickly. You don't really get to enjoy stuff as quick as you want, but we didn't care. It was just one goal checked off the box and can move on.
Was your highlight from the Michigan State game nearly destroying all the laptops on press row? I thought that would have been in there.
I still get kind of people still randomly Twitter message me or something like your foot was out of bounds, or anytime we see a Michigan State fan, they remember that. I'm like, all right, let's get over it. But that was fun. I remember stepping out of in like the third row or whatever. I came back out and I was obviously wide open because I wasn't on the court, and we got the ball somehow. And for a split second, I was like, someone pass me the ball, I'm shooting this thing. Like, if I would have gotten the ball, I would have just shot. Like, I deserve this. I would have shot it. I probably would have airballed it because my wrist was all jacked up. But I'm really glad I didn't get past the ball, actually, because for a split second, I was just like, give me the ball. I'm shooting this thing. And but
everybody probably has their favorite Frank Kaminsky story just because he was such a character. Do you have one? Or are there any moments that stand out the most that sort of define what this relationship was like?
There's a lot of Frank moments. He is the world's greatest grudge holder. For people who don't know, that dude can hold a grudge like no other. He's a tremendous basketball player. He's obviously, everyone knows how goofy he is and that, but still to this day, he knows how to hold a grudge. So we've been talking quite a bit this week about the weekend and stuff. But I don't think people realize, like, during just to sum up Frank for you, during that season, we're like 20-0 or something, 20-1, and he didn't talk to me for a full week in the middle of the season, like in the middle of Big Ten season. He wouldn't talk to me. We shared lockers right next to each other. We were kind of leaders on the team, and he wouldn't say a word to me, all because after practice one day, he wanted to show me a song. He wanted to play a new song for me. And I was like, dude, I got to go to class. Like, I'm late for class. And I left to go to class. And he took that personally and wouldn't talk to me for a week. So that just sums up Frank being Frank. He's goofy and he's got his mindset he's on. But I got to see Frank come in as a freshman. Like, I was already there. He kind of looked up to me a little bit in terms of I was a freshman who started and played, and then he was coming in. We were kind of weight room, circuit lift buddies that did stuff, kind of went through the grind together a little bit. So I got to see him develop, from coming in as a high school kid to what he became and kind of be a part of that journey with him, which it's truly special to me because I, obviously played a very small part in it, but get to see his maturity, his work. I got to see what he did every day, and he truly deserved it. I mean, he was probably the best teammate I ever had, much less best player. So a lot I could share about Frank, but
well, let's get a few drinks in you, and then we'll
there's
some of those stories will come out.
There's deeper on that. I don't feel comfortable sharing everything.
For when it comes to Bo, though, obviously he's going to be honored on Friday night as well. He's going to, in addition to the teams being honored, he's going to have his name lifted to the rafters. You guys were not the only team that was successful under him, but how does it feel that you guys were truly his last team and the one that went the farthest and had the most success and such a huge part of his legacy?
Yeah, it's pretty damn cool, to be honest with you. His legacy goes back obviously many years before at Platteville and doing all the success he had, getting to meet former players who played for him all over the years at events and stuff. Just the impact he's had on a lot of guys has been special. And I'm proud of him. The Hall of Fame stuff, I think it's extremely well deserved. But for me, it's just to be a small part of kind of his success at Wisconsin. And we walked into, you talk about us being the last team and the ones that made the farthest, but we walked into a pretty darn good situation. Like all of us really wanted to come to Wisconsin because I know for me, I just wanted to play an NCAA tournament game. I just wanted to play an NCAA tournament game. Once Wisconsin offered, it's like, hell yeah, I'm going to get to play an NCAA tournament. This is what we do. We compete for Big Ten championships. We make NCAA tournaments. We compete to get to the Final Four level, and that's just the expectation of walking into the room. So I think we were spoiled a little bit, and the foundation that was set before us from the players and obviously Coach Ryan and Coach Gard, that as a freshman, I got to walk into a locker room and in a culture that was just like, you were winning. That's just what it was. And you did things the way it was. And, you go through the professional basketball journey a little bit, you talk to more guys, and it's just not like that everywhere. So the foundation that Coach Ryan, built for us to have that success was pretty cool. And then obviously to be the team that kind of pushed them over the hump. Definitely proud of that.
For you personally, how much have you thought over the years about the opportunity you end up having that you could not have foreseen when you came here with the ACL injury, giving you another year, and then being able to play on the greatest team in Wisconsin history? Is that something that you've spent time thinking about, what that kind of serendipitous moment meant?
Yeah, I mean, the whole journey, to be honest with you, I don't know how I even ended up at Wisconsin. It's kind of a miracle where I grew up and, just not just some physical specimen or anything like that. So just to end up at a place like Wisconsin, and then obviously to have it, like I said, all I wanted to do was to see my team's name on an NCAA tournament bracket, as a kid. That's all I wanted, was for one time to play in an NCAA tournament game and to make 4 Sweet 16s and 2 Final Fours and a national championship. Like that is just, it's, almost to this point taken for granted a little bit, but, and then, just obviously the injury that happened, at the time was kind of the worst thing that could happen to you is like, why is this happening to me? But at the end of the day, it turned out pretty well for everyone because we might not have had those Final Four runs if it wasn't for that moment. That I guess I had to suffer through it, but it worked out pretty well because it made our team kind of stronger in the end. Those last 2 years, got an extra year of school to graduate and meet new friends, meet my wife, start my family. Like life turned out pretty well because of that thing. And although I still have a lot of pain, it was well worth it.
Let's get into the Kentucky game, because I remember before you guys left for the Final Four, you had your press conference in the Kohl Center. It's Frank knocking bottles off the podium there because people were making fun of him for not being good enough at a game. I think it might have been you were making fun of him. Either way, you guys just felt so loose going into that. But as soon as someone asked about Kentucky, it got a little serious. it got much more like your face changed. And it was like, I've had to think about this for a year. I've had to go into the off season. All I thought about day to day was Kentucky. Can you take me back into that mindset of where you were at in that off season leading into the 2014-15 year because of that Kentucky game?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just like, it's go time now, but it was something that nobody needed to talk about. It was just like felt and known, like we're not, because a lot of years you're working to, I don't know, just to get better and to beat, you know, Savannah State, and then to beat, Virginia in the ACC, and then to win Big Ten games. Like, we were working for something, I think, much loftier and bigger than we had ever had before, and that was to be the national champion. And kind of, that was just a little different mindset. So I think having that Kentucky loss obviously hurt a lot of people, fans, play, like it was hard, but it definitely made us stronger in the end to have that experience and to have that just commitment to the process. Like, it was every day. It was no days off in practice. There was no possessions off. There was no slacking in the weight room or anything like that, because everyone knew that every single day mattered to get back to that point and to come out on the other end. And it sounds cliche, but I mean, it was kind of serious that, we got to have our fun, like I said, but we knew how to flip that switch better than I think most teams could. And I think it's because of what we experienced in Kentucky the year before. And then when we got to see them at 38-0, yeah, when we were at that podium, it's like, we're finally here and we're going to make the most of it. And it's go time. And we truly believe we were going to win. Like, that's where the make them believe thing. Like, there was no doubt we were going to win if we played well, but we still had to play well to do it.
Truth time. I was the one asking those questions, or that question. I actually remember it. I think I talked to your parents for a story that ran that week just because I knew how the game ended the previous year. And I can actually remember Sam, of all people, because he was so goofy, I don't ever recall seeing him that like upset or angry about like a question being asked, like so over having to even think about what had happened the previous year, but also knowing like we're going to go out there and we're going to, do something special. So yeah, I don't know. I remember that you guys were pretty much over.
I remember. Yeah. I mean, it was a very normal week. And then, our film session, I think we had probably talked about this, but our film session, the last clip Coach Ryan showed was Aaron Harrison making that shot, and then I think Trey missing the shot, and it just got very. And that's not usually how film ended. He was very structured about the way he did things. So to add that in at the end was just something that was very unique, and it was just, room went silent. We all just walked out of the room, and it was like, buckle up, we're here finally. So it was just it was definitely something that we all had in our minds throughout the whole year, and glad we took advantage of it.
So that game started out, I would say not not ideal.
We were down 5-0 in like a second.
and you had Willie Cauley-Stein like doing the alley-oop and bumping guys on the way back down. I mean, I was sitting next to Jim Polzine, like floor level. I ended up getting kicked out later because I think a writer, like a national writer, came back and like, this is my seat. I'm like, all right. But I was there for that. And I looked at Jim like, I think they might be in trouble.
We hit our stopping point. Yeah.
Yep. You guys, I think he hit a jumper. Maybe it was, I don't remember exactly who it was, but hit a jumper and got stopped. And it was like, all of a sudden, right, they're ready to play. And that game, just the back and forth nature of it was a fantastic game. And obviously it goes your way. So everyone is happy to talk about it. But when you stepped on the court and that happened, Willie Cauley-Stein happened, were you like, uh-oh, or no?
Yeah. No, that was exactly. I mean, again, I watched a lot of film. They ran this same set to start every single game. This weak little post-up action for Trey Lyle. I mean, it's so easy to guard, and we had it covered. And then they threw it back to Andrew Harrison, and we were told to go under on Andrew Harrison from deep outside the 3-point line. So we went under the screen, and he just popped it right in our face. And then we come down. Frank turns it over. Willie Cauley-Stein lobbed right over my head. I jumped as high as I possibly could, and I was 6 feet from probably touching it. Dunks it right over my head, and it's like, holy shit! Just like that, we're down 5-0. We that's. But then we came down. I think Sam hit a 3, and that just kind of calmed everything down. And honestly, from that 5-0 point for the rest of the game, I mean, we kind of controlled the game in a lot of ways. Like there was a spurt in the second half where I think we went on a scoring drought, but that's going to happen against Kentucky. But for the most part, we did what we wanted to do on both ends of the floor and felt like we were the better team. Obviously, they had, their players are, they're players. But as a team, I felt like we kind of controlled the game for the most part and did exactly what we wanted to do. And turned out that was the way it was.
One question from me about the Duke game. I guess I don't want to bring down the conversation, but, it was a national championship game. I mean, I can remember being there, what was it, like 12 minutes left and you guys are up double digits. And I was thinking, holy shit, they're going to win the national championship. I'm sure you didn't think that in the moment, but I'm just wondering, when you play at such a high level and you accomplish something that no Wisconsin team really had, but it ends that way, how do you sort of reconcile those two feelings, even 10 years later, about, we made the national championship game, but we were also so close.
Yeah. Yeah. A part of you is, again, like all this stuff, people don't come by you and say like, oh, you guys lost in it. It's more of the positive stuff. But as a competitor, as a person, like I'll never be able to get over it. I think about that more than I do the positive stuff, it's just kind of a shitty feeling, but it just is what it is. Cause you were so close and, that's part of the territory, stepping in the arena. You step in there, you got to deal with the positives that come with it, and you got to deal with the negatives that come for it. And I wouldn't feel that way. Like even the Kentucky game in 2013, 2014, the first Final Four year, like that loss obviously hurts, but we were a good team, but most years we aren't the best team in the country. I truly felt like in 2015, like that team was the best team in the country most years in college basketball, like any era, like in the last 25 years. Like I felt like we could have been right in that moment, and felt like we honestly deserved, based on the way we played all season and based on what we had, and kind of just ran out of time. They went on the last run of the game, and it felt like we had another run in us, but just wasn't meant to be. And it's obviously always hard to stand by. I felt like I prided myself on a player in my whole life as being like a winner. Like I felt like I won everywhere I went, but I never actually won. Like I lost in the state championship in high school. I lost in never won a national championship, won a lot of like conference championships, but to never actually win the whole thing definitely kind of sticks with you. Even to this day, when you're watching teams when you're watching UConn cut down the nets, it's just like a part of you is like, fuck, I'm jealous. So, I mean, it's all good though.
Thanks, Jesse, for bringing us down here.
Yeah. Jesse.
I wasn't done with the Kentucky game yet. I want to
go back to the glory.
Yeah, let's go back we got the Duke question out of the way. Now we can go back to the Kentucky game. Do you still feel Trey Lyles' hand on your face? Can you still feel him knocking you down, or like knocking you in the face and not getting a technical for it?
Yeah, that was honestly crazy. If we weren't in the national semifinal with the largest crowd ever watching, I would have made a much bigger deal about that because you're in the moment, what happens. Like I know when guys accidentally do stuff, like he was very frustrated. Being on the court, I think that was like their third or second shot clock violation. I kind of blocked him out in a face guardy way, and he was pissed and he was frustrated, and he lost his composure for a second and definitely whacked me in the face on purpose. And I was like, I was literally like, what just happened? Like, did anybody else see that? I was like looking around. Like, did anybody see that? Like, am I the only one? But I didn't make a big deal of it just because it was just a moment in a game where it's like did I really? I thought I was like thinking about something that didn't happen, because I was like, why is nobody else reacting? Like, it clearly happened, and then
they reviewed it.
Replay,
Yeah, I mean, they reviewed it and still didn't do anything about it. That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, today and football players in today's day, that's a 15-yard penalty, much less.
Right?
So
for sure. You talked about that little lull in the second half where Kentucky took a lead, but they never were able to push it out at all because you guys defensively. Do you? Was it Andrew Harrison or Aaron Harrison that they just kept on going? 1-on-1, 4-out 1-on-1 against Bronson. Like, it didn't make a ton of sense there, but you guys stepped up and got the stops you needed, and all of a sudden, Sam gets a finger roll to go, and you guys can get back into it. But at some point, it was going to turn around for you guys if you kept on getting stops.
Yeah, they weren't terribly difficult to guard once you got them in the half court, and if you kept them off the glass. Like the sets they ran, they really wanted to get the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns in the post. That's what they were trying to do, and we found a way to take that away and not let them get there. And then once they couldn't get there, they'd toss it back up to Andrew Harrison, and there'd be 10 on the shot clock, and he had to go 1-on-1, and it worked in our favor. Not that Andrew Harrison's a bad player. He's obviously a tremendous player, but when you got Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, those guys around you, you'll take that. And but yeah, like we talked about earlier, I mean, we were known as a team at Wisconsin that could score and get up and down a little bit more and had a lot of talent, but we still had the identity and the foundation of what made Wisconsin basketball special. And if we didn't have that, if we didn't carry that with us, we wouldn't be able to beat that Kentucky team. So it was kind of cool that we were able to have that, the biggest win in school history, still have that foundation of we won because of defense. We won because of discipline and toughness and kind of Coach Ryan's mantra and just consistently doing it over 40 minutes. It's going to work out in your favor.
Is there a more iconic, like, back-to-back plays than Sam Decker hitting a step back 3-pointer, and then probably the most surprising thing of the entire season, taking a charge at the other end? I mean, that's just an iconic back-to-back.
Yeah, that's Sam being Sam, and it felt like all 5 guys on the floor could have made that type of play, but Sam was definitely the one that's like, it's your time, and he was special. The bigger the moment, the more he performed, it seemed like, even in practice and in games. So definitely grateful for Sam for stepping up big. But yeah, I mean, all season long, it felt like somebody made a big shot or somebody made a big play. And even before that, I think even a bigger play was Sam's, I think, finger roll he had over Willie Cauley-Stein or something that stopped the bleeding. I think we went like 6 straight minutes without scoring. And like, we just needed something to go our way. And Sam made a big bucket there to kind of calm everything down. So I think that bucket was just as big as the later plays he made in the game, but that's just Sam.
Personal favorite of mine was when he buried the 3. This was a couple games before, and tapped Bo on the butt.
Yeah,
down.
Yeah.
It was like, I got this, man.
There's a level of confidence, a level of swagger that I loved when Sam had when he got in that zone, because once he got in that zone, he was unstoppable.
So you guys win the game, and then you get to celebrate it. Obviously, the Duke game came very, very quickly, but the hotel after the game and walking up there and just the hotel lobby, as packed as any hotel lobby could possibly be, looked like the entire state of Wisconsin was in there. What is that another memory that sticks with you, just because you guys were up top, walk in and got to look down? And I just have to imagine like that probably still gives you chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just knowing the amount of support you had behind you. I mean, even probably cooler than that was probably being out on the court when there was 10 seconds left or whatever, and we were shooting free throws and they were subbing people out. We just got to like be on the court, just the 5 of us, and just kind of look around. Like, that was kind of equally as cool, just seeing how happy everybody was and how proud. And then, we kind of just assumed we were going to go back to our hotels and eat and go to bed. So it was a little more surprising for us because it was like 2-3 in the morning at that point almost, I think. But just knowing that you have that level of support behind you is pretty cool. I wish we didn't play for another week, because I would have loved to be down there having fun as well, or even just get to enjoy it a little bit more, because we were kind of watching film up there and still getting ready for the next game. So, but that was about as cool as you can get. I mean, that's kind of what you dream about as a kid, for sure.
So again, the team's going to be honored coming up on Friday night, and going to be lifting the bows, whatever the bow banner is going to look like, into the rafters. and out of those teams, and it's a stripe out for a big game against Arizona. You had a couple of those. I think it's very, I mean, Arizona's a very good team. Wisconsin's, I'm sure you've seen these first 3 games, some exciting stuff that they've done, but it feels like Friday night's going to give them a significant test. Are you excited to see them against a team like Arizona after what we've seen so far this year?
Yeah, I'm excited to see more so how they respond. Not that everybody on the team was there last year, but just how they respond to what happened down in Tucson last year, because obviously they got blitzed by 25 points. Yeah, and just kind of physically manhandled. So I'm interested to see how they're going to react in terms of coming to our court. I got some confidence in this group. I think they have a chance, but obviously this is a first test, so kind of funny how this all worked out. We get Arizona when we're celebrating the 10-year thing, and then Oregon football game next day, 2 teams that we obviously are very familiar with. So, like I said, the game itself, just being completely honest, don't care that much. I'm really excited to see my friends and my teammates.
Well, it should be a fun night. Should be a fun weekend for all you guys. Looking forward to seeing everybody down at the Kohl Center on Friday night, and then I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you get to enjoy some of the college aspects of being downtown with your old buddies. Because that as old people, and I'm pointing at myself, not pointing at Jesse, that's some of the best times, getting back together with guys that you went to college with and kind of reminiscing. So I hope you guys have a great time. You have a lot more to reminisce about than perhaps some others, just based on what you guys went through, but should be fun.
Yeah, but we'll still mostly be reminiscent about the stuff that you probably reminisce about with your friends too. Those are the more fun things that we talk about more than anything else. So,
all right, hey Josh, really appreciate your time, and we'll catch up obviously down the road, and have a good time this weekend.
Yeah, you got it. See you guys soon.
All right, appreciate Josh Gosser jumping on, and really looking forward to this weekend and seeing some of those guys back that. Some probably haven't been back, at least on the floor, for quite some time. But let's move forward. Wisconsin does have a game to play. However, they've already played 3 games. And as we talked about at the beginning of the show, you had an opportunity to be embedded with the group as they got prepared for their Montana State game last Thursday, and then the film session on Friday. For you, and I think this is always the question I ask, what stood out most about your time behind the scenes with the Badgers? You're going to be right about it for Thursday.
I think a lot. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just the evolution of this program under Greg Gard and his willingness to be adaptable. Because he's made some pretty significant hires in recent years. Obviously brought in Kirk Penny before last season as a special assistant to the head coach, Greg Steemsma, Lance Randall. But Steemsma's experience in the NBA and working in the player development office with the San Antonio Spurs previously has really impacted the game day preparation. Frankly, it's totally different. And I didn't know any of this, but, they meet on the floor 6 hours before tip-off of the game for what they call shine time, which is really just polishing up final things. But essentially, it's the coach that has the scout that day. And for Montana State, it was Joe Krabinoff going over in the half court with the whole team there. Here are the sets they're going to run. Here's how we defended. And then Greg is going over, here are the sets we want to run offensively, because he's got 6 new guys on the roster this year. And they didn't do that before. Previously, they would show up 5 hours before tip-off and just do a shoot-around, but it was this really long shoot-around. And it's like the last thing you want to do is be on the floor that long when you have a game that day. So that's one thing. But they do a thing about 2 hours before tip-off, and this is another Steemsma thing. And it's a very specific 15-minute shooting session that's staggered. So there's no more than 2 guys on the floor on either side. And it's like basically one-on-one coaching instruction with a different assistant. And the idea is to take game-specific shots based on the scouting report that you're about to shoot over the next 40 minutes, where you're not on the floor for longer than 15 minutes. And just watching them go through that was fascinating. And I write a whole lot more about that in the story. But I do think it's noteworthy that the types of shots they're taking are the ones they're getting on the floor. And now here they are shooting it very well, shooting more threes. They're part of that routine is a live free throw session, and they're making over 92%. If you're trying to draw correlations here, the whole game day process is different, and it's sort of aimed toward more of a professional model, much like Greg talks about the pro model with how you structure a roster and recruit and go to the portal. They're kind of shifting their approach to a full season. And then I did have a chance to sit in on a film session the next day, and just fascinating as someone who I think loves basketball to see what it's like at such a high level, where Greg is breaking down the film from Montana State. I think I counted there were 29 clips that he went through in the span of about 15 minutes. 20 of them were from the first half. And it's just a variety of things. A lot of things they do well, but a lot of things they don't do well, because that's obviously kind of what you're trying to do is learn early in the season. What are the defensive rules, how you defend ball screens, all those types of things. And then they have this analytics session, which is new too. They partnered with an analytics company. And so there were about 4 or 5 minutes there where they have all these crazy numbers that they're trying to figure out, how do you play your best basketball by doing these key points. And that's not really something that these players were doing before. So that's kind of the short version, but all of that stuff and more will be included in the story. But definitely, I think interesting the ways that Greg has been willing to adapt and change. Even last year, people still think like our show is called The Swing, right? And I know we got permission from Greg to do that. They haven't run the swing in a while. And now they have this ball screen continuity offense, and they ended up averaging 10 more points a game a year ago. That stuff doesn't happen with a coach who's in his 9th year. Usually it's like you overhaul the staff and there's a new system in place. So I know he takes a lot of flack, and you got to win games in March, but they've made some key changes here the last 2 seasons to try to move the program forward.
And it's not just Greg, though, right? I mean, it's you talk about overhauling the staff, kind of has.
Yes. And
Kirk,
that's another
with
part
Kirk Penny, right?
Yeah, being willing to bring in guys and listen to their advice and their opinions. And Kirk, a major part of why they went to this ball screen continuity offense, because it's something that he was familiar with from having played overseas. And Steamsma too, the kind of routine that they have. And obviously Joe Krabanoff and Sharif Chambliss and now Lance Randall as well, who's got experience at a bunch of different levels. I think it's a really good staff. And it is sort of noteworthy, the juxtaposition of just football and basketball, where the basketball staff is basically all guys who played for the Badgers, but then took different pieces from their professional life. And, Lance is very familiar, obviously, with the state of Wisconsin. And so they have a lot of love and respect for this program. And as Kirk Penny told me, we are trying to do everything we can to protect it and move it forward.
Yeah. And they'll get an opportunity to show how far they've come coming up on Friday night as number 9 Arizona comes to the Kohl Center. Looking forward to that one. Looking forward to seeing the stripe out again. They're calling for a stripe out at Wisconsin for Wisconsin and Arizona that night. Just go to uwbadgers.com or go to the social media, find your section. You'll know which color to wear. And should be a good one. Maybe we'll be back next week to talk about it. If they win, we'll certainly be back to talk about it. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Swing.